Supply chain failures or price rises in fertilizer, corporate farming consolidation, avian flu or inflationary pressures. In Ukraine, the availability of certain of our staple foods, which we take for granted since we consume them so frequently, may be diminishing shortly or may have already diminished. Corporate farming, a shift away from homegrown food, and a lack of interest in cooking from scratch have all contributed to an over-reliance on a few specific food staples. What you can do to avoid food shortages or price increases will be examined in this video, which focuses on 5 specific staples. Given my limitations in terms of time and food sources, my goal is to present you with as much genuine and practical information as possible so that you can successfully pivot in a crisis and know what you can do today in the event of future food shortages. We rely on meat, poultry, and seafood as our primary protein and fat sources, since our bodies cannot get these nutrients from any other sources. Elk, moose, venison, alligator, goat, rabbit, quail, or any of the other hundreds of different meats available are unlikely to be found in your typical modern grocery store meat department. The American palate has essentially narrowed down to just the 4 meats: beef, pork, chicken, and fish. Though we could examine the fillings of any of those 4, let's focus on one that is prominently in hairlines today: chicken. Americans eat almost 22 million chickens per day. When a new strain of avian flu emerges, it may be necessary to cull the entire flock. If you believe that switching to free-range chickens will solve this problem, you are mistaken. The latest outbreak is being spread by wild birds. Both the pig and beef industries have been adversely affected by comparable ailments that go beyond simple infections. Egg prices are likely to rise as a result of panic purchasing and inflation. If there is scarcity in your location, your best alternative is to return to a wartime stance of raising chickens for Uncle Sam, like many of our forebears did, if you can afford to do so. 2 hens are plenty to supply a family with eggs that can be dehydrated or frozen. It's possible that dehydrating eggs to extend their shelf life will be sufficient to see you through any future shortages. 10 cans of whole powdered eggs with a shelf life of up to 10 years for less than $40. Additionally, you can cook scrambled eggs and bake with them. Having 6 dozen eggs stashed away for up to a year following opening is an enormous benefit in the event of an emergency. There are many egg substitutes for baking, including applesauce, mashed banana, ground flax, or chia seeds. Supply of butter will be restricted in 2022 due to manpower and freight difficulties, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture's weekly report. Year to date, total butter production has decreased by 2.8%, but prices have risen 40% in 2013. In order to produce butter, a long and labor-intensive procedure must begin with a healthy cow fed a good diet. If feed grain becomes prohibitively expensive, milk production declines. A power outage or grid failure causes vehicles to stop running, grids to go down, or any of the processes to stall or fall, and you won't be able to get your butter out of the fridge. Butter is a luxury item, but it's also a vital supply of healthy fats, so it's unlikely that anyone within a 100-mile radius of you is ready to simply start creating their own. Churn milk from your cow and produce your own first. Learn about canned butter, which is a great way to ensure that you'll always have butter on hand in the event of a disaster. Wheat is in short supply in a number of nations around the world, resulting in a lack of flours. Hoarding grain does not help China's wheat shortages, nor does crop failure. The Great Wheat Shortage of 1797 forced many people to turn to potato breads to extend their supply. I have a video on pulling yeast from the air using a potato that might be beneficial to watch right now. That 1797 shortage was a result of poor harvest. Today's wheat industry problems range from war to fertilizer to corporate farming to seeds of supply chains, and they are far more fragile and intricately woven if the system breaks now. It isn't very likely that your neighbor is growing some wheat you can help harvest for a share. Some countries will just pivot from any wheat shortage that manifests and start using other grain, and some other countries simply don't have that luxury. Supply chains are great for providing us with a year-round cornucopia of fresh vegetables and fruit, But you can't expect that supply shortages are solely based on bad seasonal storms or droughts anymore. Supply shortages aren't solely based on bad seasonal storms or droughts anymore. Fortunately, dehydrated vegetables can last for a year or longer. If you like coconuts, you should dehydrate them or get them preserved for a long shelf life. If you don't have a coconut tree in your area, potatoes can be grown in a potato tower or grow bag in an apartment. Build your own victory garden this spring by planting an apple tree or a tomato plant in a tiny container in your backyard. You may plant herbs in your windowsill. Don't throw away a single vegetable or fruit by drying the harvest and stocking up on local farmers markets and roadside stands. If you buy in bulk from big box stores and co-ops and then process and preserve your own food, you'll be amazed at how much food you'll need in a year.